Welcome to the Squarebase Podcast, your home for news, reviews, and thoughts about the upcoming Old World from Games Workshop. In this video, Val Heffelfinger and me, Val Heffelfinger, the voice of the Old World, will be bringing you universal special rules information and joy and fun. Welcome to the show, everyone. I'm your host, Rob.
Yes, Rob.
And I'm joined by Mr. Val Heffelfinger. Hello, Val.
Hello. You've leaned back. We were doing a little pre-show set, and you immediately leaned back. I get it, though.
It's because we did well there. So, everyone, welcome to the show. Thank you again, as always, to the Patreons for supporting the show. And thank you to everyone who leaves a comment, because the Squarebase show does give you, Val...
It's your 100% reply comment guarantee. Although there was someone who commented woohoo, and it blanked my mind. I was like, I don't know what to say to woohoo.
Woohoo back! Normally,
no, I know what I usually do. I just go squarebast. Usually if I just get like a far out type comment, I usually just go squarebast. In fact, let me get there right now. Let's get complete.
When we fist bump in the future, are we fist bumping on bast or square?
Fair. What?
So I say square bast fist bump or fist bump square bast.
Oh, fist bump square bast. Square bast is like one. It's like one syllable.
Square bast.
Square bast.
Square bast. Square bast. Okay. Well, I'm really happy to be joined by you or do a show with you, the voice of the Old World.
When did that happen? When did I become the voice of the Old World?
When the Old World Facebook group, which we encourage you not to post this video into.
There.
Don't post this video in there at all, or links to this YouTube channel.
I feel like I might have bullied them into not deleting my stuff, because I've 100% been posting the links every week. As have other people. So let's keep it up. Let's stop. Let's just not post in there, guys. Let's keep not posting.
Keep not posting. And so I'm fortunate to be joined by you and excited to talk about Old World Almanac, Living Saints, and special rules. But before we get into that, what I imagine is a hot nugget of juicy rule goodness, we should talk...
Juicy nugget. Okie dokie.
Okie dokie.
Like that Popeyes chicken sandwich I had on the way to the Square Bass GT.
Whoa. Yeah, also, there's a new chicken run coming out called Dawn of the Nugget.
Oh, no.
Yeah, because I was vetoed yesterday because we have the Rogue Hobby staff party on Saturday. Some people don't know that I'm also employed fully. And we have the staff party, and so the decision is to see... Chicken Run got eventually shouted down, but I tried to veto it and was mercilessly told off for vetoing Chicken Run 2.
Just see Napoleon again, huh?
Just double Napoleon. 2 Napoleons in a row, I think we should see.
The double feature.
The double feature. That's all I want. That's all I want.
What were you trying to segue to exactly?
I was trying to segue to I was just introducing everyone, saying hello, and then I was going to then do the follow-up, beginning of, how have you been? What have you been up to? How's the Square Bass world been for you since we last were on air?
My casita is still disaster. I published one short last week. I think it tanked our entire channel, ruined everything. I still have
I don't care, man. You made a short so on our YouTube channel there's a short. The short is great. It was funny. It was engaging, and you're trying to do something outside your comfort zone. And if you're not watching these shorts, this is going to be a short. If you're not watching these shorts, you should be trying harder. We should be
try harder at watching the shorts. That's right, Rob. That's right.
Yeah,
try harder at watching the shorts.
Yeah, because YouTube only really wants shorts. Doesn't want any.
See, that's what I thought. But there's this hilarious moment in the viewership. It's fun watching all this stuff. For those of you guys who've never published on the YouTube, it's a lot of fun because you get all kinds of graphs, and I love spreadsheets and stuff. So I've been doing a lot of graph watching. And there's a graph of the short where it's at 500 views. It's been climbing nicely, and then in the span of 10 minutes, it spikes 500 views. And what that means is that YouTube was like, "Oh, this might be popular. Let's send it out to the people." And so they put it out to the people for 10 minutes, and then never again. So we got to 1,000 views, and we are now at 1,100 views. Because we totally failed the test, but that's fine. They shouldn't offer Warhammer related shorts on very specific like rules updates to just the general public. I don't think there's no. Maybe we should just have the butt cam on our Warhammer takes. That's what we'll do. We get the lady with the G-string.
No, stop. Move on. Listen.
On the loop.
No. So
and we just talk about Warhammer with the butts in the background, and it doesn't have to be a lady. We can mix it in.
We said this when we set everything up. You and me. We are both passionately excited about the old world. We're going to build some minis, we're going to play some games, we're going to talk about some lore, and we're going to have a good time. It doesn't matter how many people join us for the journey. If people join us at all, that's incredibly, it's not true. if people join us for the journey at all, I feel very, very, and I hate using this word, but blessed, honestly. It's
absolutely
wicked.
I'd feel more blessed if 250 more people subscribed so we got to 2,000. But
I'm also gonna big you up. No, I'm not letting you feel bad about this. You've inspired me. I've also said now when I do Honest Wargamer streams, I'm gonna 100% reply guaranteed. Do you wanna know why? It takes an incredible amount of effort to like write a YouTube comment and reply and do stuff. And I'm like, that is awesome that people want to engage with us at that level. It
is pretty cool.
People have supported us on Patreon. That's nuts. That's
nuts.
All right, nuts. Okay, so get your head in the game, man. People like you. You're the voice of the old world in the old world Facebook group, not on TikTok, apparently. Not there.
Is there someone on TikTok? Maybe I need more shorts then. Damn it. We definitely need butts for TikTok, though. I mean, you can't argue with me.
No, that's not true. That's not true. You could just.
You don't need butts on TikTok?
No, what you could do is we could just. It doesn't matter. Let's not get into that. There's a whole thing right now. It's a whole thing. Okay, we don't need to do any of that.
Look, I don't have low self-esteem about this at all. This venture has been wild. It has been an incredible ride so far. I'm having such a blast. I'm sick of these stupid previews. I just want the rules already. God damn it! But.
No, I think that is a frustration I'm picking up from you, and I think it's a frustration a lot of people share. Because while each of the rules is exciting. Initially, first couple of weeks, now it feels like we're being drip fed, and you're like, "Come on."
It's not the drip fed. It's like if like at the end of at the end of Wheel of Fortune, where they get the phrase, but they're never allowed to buy a vowel, so you just have all the consonants. So like, I just want to buy a fucking vowel, man. Let me see the rest of the phrase, guys. Like, we have some blanks. We have some blanks that we need to fill in at this point, and it's not going to be that long until we can. But it's still, I've been edged along enough now, guys.
Big news, Gabe in the chat. So obviously, if you watch this on YouTube or listen to this on podcast, we are recording this live in front of the Honest Wargamer Twitch studio audience, which we do every Tuesday at the moment. So do check us out. It's on this Honest Wargamer Twitch. But Gabe from the east coast of Australia, one of our old world sister or brother chapters spreading worldwide. We've got Sweden in the tank. I know that for a fact. Canada, America. Chuck has said he's already starting the American old world team. You've got Canada.
Chuck is captain.
He's captain. So now we've got.
We have said one day that we were going to run a World Team Championship in Iceland, and then someone took that very seriously. I think maybe from Iceland. I'm not sure. And now it feels like the World Team Championships will be in Iceland.
It will. We have a logo. It's done. We have captains for teams. It's all very exciting. But anyway, you don't know. I've been organising this fastidiously in the background. It's close to done. How's the charter for Canada coming?
I mean, the charter. I am the charter. We don't need no charter. We don't need no stinking charter. Kidding me?
Chowder?
Why would we learn from any other attempt to organize an international team tournament? No. This is all autocracy. However, I do appreciate the last time I went to an international team tournament, the only reason I got to go was because it was in the very Instagrammable tourist destination of Croatia. Ooh. You've picked the second most Instagrammable tourist destination of Iceland. My darling wife has wanted to go there for some time. So I think I can get at least one square-based international team tournament out of this.
I've got I also know 3 people in Iceland, so I'm on this.
Incredible.
Yeah, so
I think it's a buddy system thing. Like we need at least like probably a few dozen Icelandics.
Yeah, you do. Iceland's kind of perfect as well, kind of Kislevian, like it's fun. Anyway,
I mean it's very appropriate. an island in the middle of the Atlantic, but not like one of the warm ones.
I don't want this to overrun, okay? So I don't want you to get all the hot gossip out. So I would need to ask you, any old world in since we last spoke to you, what you been doing?
What have I been doing? I was trying to say the casita is still completely bombed out. I haven't done anything. I was trying to say this before the show. All this stuff talking about Bretonians, and like I've always been like thinking about it, like other people have Bretonians. I don't have Bretonians. Turns out, no, that's not right. I have so many Bretonians. I have just so many Bretonians. So, but they are all sort of. The person who painted it over their like hobby life. So like they're freehand, and they didn't know how. I guess they thought that freehanding was easier than learning how to use decals. So it is a bit of a hobby like rehab project. And I'm going to rebase this army because I think they'll look particularly sweet on the new 30 by 60. Spoilers.
Available from us.
Available, maybe? Did we brand them? Did Tom put the brand on them?
Tom's also done a lot recently. I think he is today. I think that's on his list today.
That'd be lovely.
So yeah,
I think that's a great Patreon perk.
Yes. Yeah, no, we're going to put them. So what we're talking about, is we've made digital files for 30 by 60s and 30 by 30s with magnet holes on, and they'll be, if they're not on the Patreon already, which I think I did, but if they're not, I'll do it. It's directly after this show, so they'll be available. Like for
we should probably put the 40 by 60s on there too, because that's a very rare.
Do you know what? We're of the people. Let's just put it on there for free. Let's just put it on, but that's
just
where it's located.
Yeah,
just up there on general on Patreon for free.
Can we not try to screw people over just for once, or do we have to be the good guys all the time?
Let's be the good guys. Let's be the good guys.
Fine. We'll be magnanimous. I can be magnanimous.
You are magnanimous. Come on.
At any rate, the Bretonians I have are lovely, and again, spoilers. It took me 5 minutes to be able to figure out which ones the Grail Knights were, which is not good.
I think what you're alluding to is that the Bretonian Knights not getting new Grail Knights, arguably the kit. I would say, I don't know. I think I was playing Orcs and Goblins. I feel like Black Orcs are the kit. They're the kit. I'm not 100% sure if that's 100% true, but, feels like that's definitely, on point. For Empire, I feel like it's long swords or...
great swords?
Yeah. Great swords, yeah, great swords.
I can see that.
Do you know what I mean? I can kind of feel that. High Elves, I got to say it's either, not that either of them need updating, but Phoenix Guard or White Lions, but both of them are fantastic kits anyway, so they're fine. Dwarfs, it would just be your Dwarf Warriors, your standard Dwarf Warriors, which also hold up pretty well, I think. But Grail Knights are the... Go on.
Well, I think if I could interrupt just for half a second, it's just I think the kit of Warhammer Fantasy, chat in the comments, whoever you want to be, this is what I'm going to say. I'm going to say it. Blood Knights, the original Vampire Blood Knights. I feel like that is a legendary kit. Like in pewter, it cost $1 million for 4 of them.
I think
that's most legendary kit. I think that's like the kit.
I think the cost of the Blood Knights really sold the Blood Knights. People are like, oh, Blood Knights. And the first thing someone would say would be like, that is expensive. That's expensive.
that's breathtaking.
Every time.
Yes.
I think it added a little bit to it if I'm 100%. Oh, real Blood Knights. Oof, that's spenny. New Blood Knights look great though.
Yeah, but they're on properly proportioned horses, which is just problematic. Also, you did something kind of, I don't know when you did this, but you did it. You put tickets on sale, man.
Are we saying it out loud?
Well, it's already been soft launch. We should say it out loud. Unless, have you taken a few tickets now just in case, though?
I have taken a few tickets out just in case.
All right, so yeah, we can soft launch this.
Yeah, so
it's a hard launch for the fans.
I'll include it in the show notes. But yes, we have announced the date, and I've put the date of the Old World Square-based GT available for sale. I just put it up on our Eventbrite. So the Honest Wargamer, Eventbrite, Squarebase GT, keywords that should all work on Google if you want. It's in Nottingham at the TSN Arena. We only have 24 tickets because we have, I think, a very lovely venue. Like each table is an independently free table. There's a gaming chair at each table. So I think it's arguably one of the. There's free soup. It's drinks are free. It's one of the I think it's arguably one of the best places to play Warhammer, maybe in the world.
I don't know if it's arguable.
Oh, what do you mean? You think it's not good enough?
No, jeez, that was dark. That was a dark insight. Obviously, it means that it's inarguably the best venue.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Well, I mean, there were really
side of the coin on that one.
No, there are really nice places around the world, but you're on table. I think so.
Well, Mini Wargaming Bunker. We're kind of going from the best to the best.
Exactly. Yeah. Let's only host these events in the best. I agree. Yeah. Let's go.
Hell yeah. I was going to say that Squarebase GT2 Warhammer The Resurrection, because it is Easter weekend. So luckily, Rob and I are atheists. But for those of you who also don't mind missing church on Sunday, it's going to be sweet. And I'll be flying over, doing a little tour. Going to pop through London, maybe visit Bath, maybe swing by, Bath, try and drive on the wrong side of the road. I'm going to rent a car, Rob. This could be bad.
No, you'll be fine.
The thing is that I am the tourist who needs the look right. No, sorry. Yeah, look left. Is basically in London you have in yellow on the ground everywhere, before you walk across the sidewalk, which way you're supposed to be looking to not get hit by a car. I don't think the cars have these, so that could be problematic.
I think I'm gobsmacked at how many tickets we immediately sold, and the fact that you're already coming over. And then we didn't tell anyone. I just was like, okay, I need to, because what I have to do is I have to book the event. I get asked to go to loads of different things and do a lot of stuff. So I book it in when it's available. So I'm like, it's booked in now. It's there. And then I just kind of soft put it up. And we have run a lot of events over the past few years. So, there is kind of a subscriber list, which I think maybe they get push notifications. I don't know. But immediately people saw it. And then the most unexpected people were DMing me and being like, which is kind of sweet, actually. Let me tell you this. I haven't told you this yet. I got DMs from people being like, Rob, I bought a ticket. And then they were sharing it online. They're like, I bought a ticket. I'm so excited. And I was like, wait. I only know you as a very serious Age of Sigmar player. What the hell is going on? They're like, dude, fantasy. That's how I started. I played as a kid. I played goblins. Goblins in my army. He's like, that's all I care about. And actually, kind of another thing, because I saw this comment online, or I saw it in the YouTube comments recently, and I'm not sure I 100%.
Wait a minute, was that Nathan? Was that voice Nathan? Is Nathan coming?
No, not Nathan. No, me and Nathan did used to play. He might play. He still has 200 goblins on square bases.
I really would like to meet him.
Okay, I'll tell him. Nathan Prescott. All right. All right. I'll make him be the ref. It'll be completely the opposite energy to Pete. I'm like, what, could you ref, please? I'm like, what's the answer to this question? I'm like, oh yeah, I don't know. Just that's the angle.
Maybe we should do a little. We should fly Pete in. We should find a way. Maybe that's finally the time we should pull the Kickstarter lever.
Yeah,
raise the funds to get the Falcon in to run the GT for us.
Okay, I could do that. Yeah, done. What was I going to say? The really sweet comment I saw was, so I had these people message me, and it's actually really sweet because you've talked about this a lot before. You've talked about the bubble, or effectively, what happened is, and 8 years is an interesting gap as well. Sorry, lots of thoughts there at once. Basically, what you've said in the past is you hook them when they're kids, and when they have the money later on, they're out there and they're playing. And then you said you think that generally the Warhammer bubble is going to die off in later generations because there's less kids being pushed into Warhammer when they're younger. I would say I don't necessarily agree, and I think Magic the Gathering and other stuff as maybe...
This was directly related to malls. The fact that Games Workshop, especially North America, used to live in malls where kids would just hang out. And so that was where this came from. And because the mall died, I wonder, now in order to go to a Games Workshop, you generally have to drive there, and it's in a sad strip mall or a very low density open air thing. That was the original thought. But yes,
yeah,
I do think there, and also just millennials in general is the bubble.
Yeah, I also think NA is slightly different to how all of the other like nations kind of work. Like, you know, like Nottingham is obviously very different because Warhammer World is here, but like, you know, most other towns in England, if you walk through, there's a Games Workshop on the high street most of the time. You know, and England is a very walkable. And most of Europe, obviously, very walkable places. That's generally what you do. You hit a city, you're walking around. So I think that still kind of exists. Maybe not as much in NA because the malls have died, as you pointed out. But anyway, my kind of point was all those people who play Warhammer Fantasy Battle, and then 8 years, you know, when they were that kind of time that most people take off from playing Warhammer. This isn't everyone's journey, but most people's journey. And then, you know, at the time when they're about to start playing Warhammer again, or should be, they relaunch the game that they played as a kid. That's quite a nice kind of like correlation, which I thought was really sweet. But to see the excitement in these people's faces of, you know, of the thing that I did when I was a kid and I'm returning. And obviously we've talked about the fact that they're using nostalgia a lot as a sales technique. And they're specifically...
The fan service is out of control at every level right now. It is out of control, but yes.
Oh, and we know some other interesting facts as well.
Go ahead.
I told you about the 80% thing.
80%?
80%. So, like, as I understand it... Games Workshop Marketing was told to, when they launched the Horus Heresy last year, when they were told only focus on returning customers. Like, we're not interested in new customers for the Horus Heresy. We only want all of our messaging to be directed towards existing customers, which it feels like that's what's happening with the old world. I don't know if that's your opinion, my opinion. Do you share that feeling?
I'm sorry, what? I'm sorry, someone said I was right in chat, and I just couldn't hear anything but angels singing. So,
what I said was,
see, you can do this. You can talk to me and chat at the same time. I don't know how. If I glance at them for 2 seconds, I am gone. I am gone, and I am useless. You should probably just stop and start the recording again, because you were going somewhere there, and I'm sorry.
It's okay. My friend Booben once, when I was in Sweden, he asked me, he said, Rob, how does someone become incredible at Warhammer? And I'm like, well, you could be great at Warhammer by practicing and trying really hard and learning. And he was like, okay. But I was like, you need to be slightly mentally unwell to be able to be great at, like, incredible at Warhammer. You need an obsessive. You wake up and you're thinking about an army. You go to sleep, you're thinking about an army. Like it takes up your day. You play too much. You live in a Warhammer house. Like, you need to be obsessed. Anyway, so I'm obsessed with streaming, so I'm fine at that.
Yes.
Like, it's fine.
Okay. Oh, I see. Okay. Yes.
Yes, that's what I'm trying to say.
Look at you. I'm looking at you. Chat. We'll talk later. Rob, you were going somewhere cool. And then you asked for my involvement. So let's stop, new game, hit me again.
Finish that story off. The other day, my partner asked me what dinner I wanted, and I said, be quiet, chat. So, to finish the story. What I was saying was that would you think that lots of the messaging and marketing for the new stuff has been directed towards older people returning and not directed towards new people? Is that a fair statement?
That's a tremendously fair statement. Yes, we've been picking up on that for some time now. Yes, and also the game design itself is feeling very fan servicey as well.
Agreed. So my point was, as I understand it, marketing last time Horus Heresy was released, which was kind of the same studio thing, they were told to focus on returning customers, not new customers. And then sales reports are in, and they had 80% of the people that picked up Horus Heresy stuff were new customers. Which is kind of interesting information, because I feel like that's going to be, I think that there's so many people who did love the old world, which is just the story I was kind of telling, and there's those people, but there's also going to be loads of new people, and I think that that's super exciting as well, to see those worlds kind of like, you know, smashing together, and also the passion of those two groups, as, you know, people being like, I remember this when I was a kid, and then being like, dude, I've never even played before. Like, it's going to be such an amazing kind of like high five. Oh my God, what do you love? It's going to be a real nice moment, I think, in the future.
Yeah, and it's kind of wild to think, like, and again, I think once we actually start getting into this week's preview, we'll see how deep this thing is, because we're basically getting a full game launched on day one, like basically what people in 40K, maybe even AOS, when they do the reboots, they kind of wait, why isn't every codex released day one? And they say, well, it's not possible, it's not viable. We are literally getting that. We're getting a full fleshed out game that feels like they basically took 8th edition and ported it over into their new sort of paradigm, which feels like I don't know, feels like a lot of good compromises. Looks like they've made a lot of very tasteful editing choices from what they've picked and chosen from previous rule sets. And it's just going to be so much. I'm a bit overwhelmed even anticipating how we're going to go about covering, how many factions? 19 factions? I think something like that. Off the top of my head, I can't remember exactly how many fantasy factions.
19? We're going to have to book a week off. It'd just be like
for real, dude. Like, I'm going to need to get a babysitter. We're going to
I want you to know, I'm going to grind out hard. Like, they'll be like, are you guys not in bed asleep yet? I'll be like, fuck no. Yeah, we're grinding this out.
Oh, one last anecdote, which actually, this is good. We can use this for a short because I wanted to do it. I listened to a really great podcast by a guy named PJ Vogt, and he does this thing. He asks, it's called Search Engine, and each week he explores a different question. And at the end of his show, he usually will start talking about the next question that they want to do. And his question was, what was the first emergency podcast? I don't know if you're familiar with the format of emergency podcast.
No.
But it's like essentially, like breaking news, and I remember in my head, I immediately went, oh, it's got to be a Warhammer podcast. Because I remember in 8th edition 40K, every time like a new index got leaked or whatever, we'd all be scrambling to get a podcast up, and there were emergency podcasts all the time. The first emergency podcast he could find was, in fact, from the Chaos Dwarf forums, from like the year 2007, and it was in fact a Warhammer podcast. Was the first recorded example of an emergency podcast going live to air with very important information, which at the time was the forum is down, and don't panic, everybody.
Oh my god, that's so exciting.
So it's but I just feel like we're that type of people. Those who like it, you are literally waking up in the morning thinking about it. I mean, like, I don't know if you've done this, but like literally said goodnight to your Warhammer friends, sleeping next to your, otherwise favorite person in the world, your significant other or spouse, and then you go to bed, and then you wake up and you actually message the Warhammer friend again before you've spoken to your spouse. That's the grossest. That's the grossest I ever feel about Warhammer, is when I'm just like very much talking to Warhammer people before the person next to me.
I don't think that's bad. I think being passionate about a creative hobby is incredibly attractive, and I think it's wonderful for everyone out there. Listen, we're going to get into the rules. That's what we're going to do.
We kind of did the vamping first instead of last this time, but that's okay.
Yeah.
We got an hour and 15.
Yeah, and I think I could do a timestamp 27 minutes in, so people could.
I've been putting timestamps in, Rob. Have you not been looking at my show notes?
I'm telling you, 27 minutes. If you want to write it down, take a note.
Does that include the trimming of the front?
It does. Yeah.
Oh wow! Shit. Okay. Cool.
Wow. Okay. Right. Okay. So, Old World. Hello, chat. Right. So, Old World Almanac, Living Saints and Special Rules. Some say we're living saints. I don't know if I agree. The Grey Knights are the epitome of Bretonian idea of chivalry.
Epitome. You were every single person who's done Man Read Book on this article has said epitome. Epitome.
Yeah. Now I've been bullied about this.
I've listened to like 4 of these already. So
I'm so sorry. You are like later into this convo. There's a unit in the Age of Sigmar universe called the epitome of Sinesh, right? And then people would always be rude to me about it, and so I just dug my heels in. I was like, I'm staying.
Okay, epitome it is.
Epitome.
You can't let the people dictate your tastes and preferences.
Exactly, right? Yeah, I know what I'm saying. I know it's wrong. As people, thanks to Dr. White in the chat for donating 5 gift subscriptions. That's incredibly kind.
Dr. White.
Yeah. Warriors of immeasurable prowess and exemplars of courage, virtue, and noblesse oblige. Arguably, they're going to do it all wrong. That's my idea. Arguably the most devastating heavy cavalry plying their trade in the old world. These are literally the last living saints your average devotee of the Dark Gods wants to meet out in the battlefield. Now, we have got a whole unit profile, so I guess we should talk about that first. There you can see the excellently sculpted Grail Knights.
I mean, those lances have a lot of reach.
They are, like, I can see that they are indeed straight, but they signify to me that they shouldn't be. Something about them makes me feel like, even though I know they are, I feel like they won't be.
They won't be very sure. Like the person who took this photo of them was just like, and here we go, fucking son of a, like just complete, like just constantly bending them. Yes, they are made of metal, everybody, and they will be once again returning in glorious metal.
Insane, insane.
And they're very little. They're very short. Like I have them. I'm looking over there at them, and like they're not great. It's just not very good. That's okay.
We have to admit that this has to be one of the ones that does not get, anyway, it doesn't matter. We'll talk about it later. Right, 38 points a model, which I know you've got loads of thoughts on. So
when do I just start vomiting ideas out of my brain?
Well, let me run through the profile a tad, and then you can just start hitting me with some info. But the point is that that's the same amount of points as they were in old Warhammer Fantasy Battle.
Pretty sure.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that 38 points per model is where they were.
You and me talked about this already, and I was like, it's going to be incredibly ironic if the entire game is more expensive, like everything's 10% more expensive, or, units are worse or better, which I know you've got thoughts on with this as well. But the one example they choose to show is where they've given it the same amount of points, but the unit profile is different, to just utterly break everyone's brain.
Yeah, we've seen samey profiles. I could see them very much just sticking with what they had, because honestly, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I think has been a design philosophy they've been using, and I could see them not wanting to mess with how they had their points already arranged. And maybe one day we see them rebalance them later on once they have everyone playing it.
It also gives them a good baseline, right? Like, if they're like, this is what the game looked like, how do we fit rules around those points versus how do we fit points around these rules?
Exactly. And they have a good starting point already, so why not just roll with it? There are some undercost, there are some like chestnuts of undercosted and overcosted things. And also, I think cavalry, especially elite heavy cavalry, like our friends the Grail Knights, were considered heavily overcosted in the meta of 8th edition for a lot of reasons that perhaps no longer apply as much if you're adding back a lot of things that made heavy cavalry really good in previous editions. So this is where we can get into talking about the Grail Knights. So maybe they kept it where they were, thinking that the buffs have made them relatively worth their points again, which they were not necessarily in 8th edition. Even though, Grail Knights in a Bretonian list were kind of important. They were one of the only heavy hitters that they had in 8th edition, but they weren't the world killers that they may have been in 6th and 7th.
Yeah, or as they're written in the lore. Obviously, we have some ludonarrative dissonance available to all of us, which is fun. Okay, so they're 1 wound apiece. Is the interesting part with 2 attacks each. Their toughness 4 because they're obviously on a horse, and they movement pretty fast, movement 8. The big news is that they've got a troop type heavy cavalry, and their base size is 30 times 60 millimeters.
Who would have known?
Who would have known?
Could have possibly said this?
Oh my God!
By the way, great book of grudges. By the way, not to pick a fight with my boy Nathan. But he's out there saying he's been calling this for a year and a half. Nathan, come on, man. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if you've been saying 30 by 60 for a year and a half, but that's longer than we've been around. So convenient that we can't say we've been saying this longer than you have. But I'm going to say it. We've been saying it longer than he has.
Has he been saying it before images were shown?
Before anything. He was just out of his butt? No, I don't think so. The guy, he's just always online recording things. So who knows? Maybe he's
got a source. Maybe he's got a source. Okay, but 30 by 60.
Nathan has genuinely been rebasing his armies since we started this show. I've been watching him on the Twitter or the X, and so he has without hesitation gotten rid of all of his 20 millimeter bases. He's gone full tilt. He's one of the only people I've noticed doing that. Miniature Realms as well. One of our always commenting fans here. They actually, I don't know if it was based on our guidance. Maybe it was from Great Book of Grudges. But they went full hog and actually rebased two 30 by 60s before this was announced. That's called bravery, folks. That's called cojones.
That is cojones. As I understand it, there's still going to be some 20 mils, 25 mils, 30 mils. And no, there's still...
no 20 mils. You've heard there's 20 mils? Are you sure? Or are you misspeaking there?
Oh, maybe
20
mils. I might be misspeaking. I don't think I because like some stuff, because whatever the horse size, because this is heavy cavalry, light cavalry will be on the old base size.
So well, yeah, the question is like what counts as light cavalry? Because if we were to go to
it'll say light cavalry, like Marauder horsemen.
Oh yeah. I just mean like right now, like intellectually, if we had to guess what
Marauder
counts as light cavalry. Marauder horsemen. Okay, what about Illyrian Reavers? Which have been photographed fighting in that one, basically that one article where we see all the bases. What? They look. You see Wolf Riders in that photo, and you see a bunch of high elf stuff in that photo. So the Wolf Riders are to me clearly on 25s. Let me pull it up for you.
Okay. Well, the important part to note is that like. I'm not 100% certain everything makes the shift. That's kind of the, like, yes, that's my statement, which I'll stick to at the minute.
And I agree. Yes.
So I think a full rebasing at this stage is keen in some cases. I think you can make, so I think though we can make some pretty educated guesses, which is I agree.
One, all 20s are gone. And I would say that the one that's really hard to guess at is which 25 millimeters, like currently 25, don't go to 30 millimeter. So that one's a hard one to like guess at.
Have we also seen like movement trays a la A Song of Ice and Fire, where it's a movement tray with the holes? Like, have you seen A Song of Ice and Fire? They have,
yeah, of course.
They have movement trays with circular holes in, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. I'm hoping some of those are files that are out there, and if they're not, definitely going to get some made.
We need spacers. Yeah, we need spacers that you can just slide those into, like, so existing trays. We need, like, trays that are just circles to rectangles, basically. The problem is...
what I'm saying is, like, I would very legitimately accept someone having a tray that was the right frontage for, 5 cavalry or, 30 dudes or whatever the frontage would be. And then that tray was the frontage, and then you just had some circles representing the dudes on the tray. That would be fine by me. That would be super okay.
And then they're just like, so you don't necessarily even have the right amount of dudes on it.
You don't even have the right amount of dudes. You just be like, there's 27 dudes in here. There's a dice next to them, or there's a tracker. There's 27 dudes.
Well, Kings of War it. Yeah.
I mean, that's fine with me.
I think this is something. I think when we get the full picture, which hopefully will be soon, just saying, if there's anyone out there, we got a little bit of Patreon money in the kitty. Maybe you've gotten the rules early. Maybe you feel like you've been treated poorly.
No.
Maybe you feel like you've been treated poorly, but as a playtester, maybe they haven't taken all of your really good ideas.
No.
Do you know what? Just DM me. Maybe we should talk to one another. I can make you maybe feel a little bit better about stuff, and you could, give me privileged information.
I need
totally
to.
Will send you money for it. But
I need to right now, obviously, point out that very much like Fox News, this is an entertainment show, and therefore that was a satirical joke. It's what we were engaging in. Let's just be clear.
Yes, definitely a satirical joke. I will not pay you for privileged information, which I think what you're saying is illegal, and I get that now, and that was totally just a joke.
It was a joke. That's the point.
I don't read my DMs anyway. Don't worry about it. I do read them. So where
Anyway, wait. So someone pointed out in the chat, I think it's a good point. David has said that heavy cavalry and base sizes are separate on the chart, so it's unfair to think that all heavy cavalry will be on that base and all light cavalry will be on that base. So it's a really good distinction, well made, excellent. But I do think we'll see some 25-60. Let's not become base enthusiasts right now.
It does feel though. I really want to say that it feels like if it's a horse, it's on 30-60, because I'm looking at these bloody elves right now, and the Illyrian Reavers, they look like they're on 30-60. The Wolf Riders, the Goblin Wolf Riders, do not. They look like they are on the old 25s. I feel like the old size is going to be like dire wolves and chaos hounds, wolf riders, like that, like literally like spider riders. I think that'll be 25s. I think if you're on a horse, you're on a 30 by 60.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. Okay, so we've got
And
unit
based on what
size.
we've seen, maybe even a 40 by 60. Sorry to keep interrupting.
Oh, no,
you can
no.
go on.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you. Unit size 3+. So obviously there are minimum. If you're new to this, how this all works, there are minimum unit sizes, and then you normally pay for each individual model you add into the unit. Then normally you'll buy an upgrade for the unit, and it applies to each model. So if you're adding, let's say, barding or something, you're adding to each individual model into that unit. So if you've got 10 dudes, times the cost by 10. If you've got 9 dudes, times the cost by 9. And then you normally pay to upgrade to have a command core in most units. Sometimes not. Sometimes you'll have a monster and you'll give them some sort of special upgrade, like a flaming attack or something. So, basically you pay for all additional rule sets. It's an incredibly elegant way of actually balancing a game. It was never done well. I want to be very clear. It was never done excellently, and we've seen it repeated in 40k, and we've seen Age of Sigmar, and we have seen 40k move on from those where they're like, just take the unit. 10 of those dudes cost this. Do what you like.
So funny that like you were explaining how this works, and I'm like, why is he being so pedantic? And then I was like, oh, wait a minute, because none of the other games work this way anymore. Like it was in 40k, both have left like the ability to like really micro sculpt your or like I don't know, be very detailed in how your units are kitted and all that kind of stuff. I just sort of took it for granted.
Yeah. So a lot of people might not know that this is the process, right? Like, so that's important to talk about. And yeah, there also isn't a cap on the unit size. Although that will be in army construction, these will probably be rare or elite units. Therefore, they'll probably be 25% total of your unit's cost. Sorry, of your army's cost. So there will be a certain amount of points you can spend on this unit, and that's it. I feel
like we're going Force Org. I feel like it's going to be Force Org, but we'll see.
We'll see. We'll see.
It's a minimum unit size. There is no maximum. That is an interesting quirk of fantasy. There are very few units that have ever had an upper cap to how many people you can bring in them. Now, different instances of this, so you can't have like 100 units of 3+ Grail Knights. Usually that will be limited, like Rob said. Even when it was a percentage, you could only bring rare selections in a game under 3,000 points. So there's always some sort of either limiting the type of choice or the total points allocated to it. There's always going to be some sort of limitation on it.
Yes, there's definitely always going to be like there will be a cap because of how it works, right? But importantly, you can't buy individual upgrades. So, for instance, if you decide to have barding on all of your guys, they have barding on everyone. Like there might be one super elite unit in the game, I don't know, where you could individually choose weapons, but that just isn't generally the case. Everyone has something. And it's across the whole unit. So they're effectively wound. They're just basic wound markers. But then we've seen the equipment that they do have. And again, this is universal special rules, right? They've got hand weapons, lances, heavy armor, and shields. And each one of those effectively is indicating a rule. Heavy armor means they start at a 5-up armor save. Shields indicate that you add +1 to that armor save, so that's +1. Also gives them a ward save in combat, 6+. Does it give a ward save against shooting?
What, shields?
It used to, yeah.
In 8th edition, anyway, parry saves were in combat, yeah. So if you were being fought from the front, you got a parry save in combat with your shield and hand weapon. If you use your shield with the lance, I don't think that would work. You would not get a parry save. It was only hand weapons and shields. So subsequent rounds of combat, when you lose your benefits of having the lance, you would maybe get a parry save, yes.
Yeah. So that they all indicate basically special rules, like USRs, Universal Special Rules, and then it tells you about the Bretonnian Warhorse and its rules. It's got iron shod hooves, which count as hand weapons, and it's got barding, which adds +1 to your armor save. But this is where there's some spicy news available here. So armor saves are effectively built up of a bunch of different Universal Special Rules. So you'll start with your armor type, like light armor is a 6, heavy armor is a 5. Have you got a shield? +1. Are you do you have barding for your horse? +1. And traditionally, if you were mounted on some sort of mount, you would add +1. But this is for you.
Yeah. But we're no longer getting the mount +1.
Where did we get that information from?
It was confirmed. Actually, this made me want to go back and review all of the Facebook posts. It was confirmed on Facebook by a member of whoever confirms things on Facebook from Games Workshop, from the Old World Facebook channel, no less. And they said that actually the response was a very SBF styled. Yep. And Sam Bankman-Fried. Basically, the question was, I noticed that it's 3 up. Normally, it would have been 2 up. Have they lost the +1 for being mounted? The answer, yep. Which means these 38-point Grail Knights, with one wound, half of them are going to die if you have an AP of -1. And that seems like not good, Rob. I'm not going to lie. Everything in my Warhammer experience teaches me that is bad. So there must be other means of getting these guys some defense. Can we start talking about this? Like, are we ready to get a little dive deep?
Sure. Do you want me to just wrap up the options really quickly, because we were talking about that and I don't want people to get confused. Then you can give us the whole spiel. Is that good?
Sure. Yeah.
I just wanted to say that, so then talking about buying upgrades, which is how units will work. Because again, I think there's some confusion in the chat, so I'm assuming there's going to be a lot of confusion for other people. What happens is, now, this might not be true, so it's either going to be force organization chart, and if that is the case, then that'll be the way it works. I think it's more going to be your classic 50%, is it 50% your army? 25% has to be core. So there'll be units that are defined as core, what makes up an army, and 25% of your army will have to be that. You can have up to 25% of heroes, or might be 50% lords and heroes, something like that. But that's a maximum. And then rare and elites, or whatever it's called, special rares or whatever, those will be different unit types. So maybe Bretonnian Knights will be one, and Trebuchets will be the other. And then you can only have up to 25% of those. So you cannot have all Grail Knights, or that probably is the case. 100% not certain. So I just want you to talk about that. And then additionally, you can pay for unit champions and unit things. So you can have a Grail Guardian who's a champion, which will normally improve your leadership for the unit, basically for 7 points per unit. So
give you an extra attack, and also this particular champion has a bunch of other benefits too. Yep.
Which is great. A standard bearer, which is 7 points, which is also super useful, because then you can also have a magic standard up to 100 points. So there are loads of generic standards, and probably standards available for this army as well, which is awesome. And then you get upgrade to a musician, and the musician lets you basically do a musician test when you do some reforms and stuff. So it's useful. Normally you buy all 3 for elite units. It's just like all 3.
Depends, but yeah.
Okay, yeah. And then a Grail Guardian, as you can see, can take a knightly virtue of up to 50 points. So you would buy the Grail Guardian, and then you can give the Grail Guardian even more cool shit. Don't forget, it's kind of an awkward unit for them to show off, because this is a unit with all of the upgrades, basically, I think.
Well, no, actually, this to be fair, there actually aren't that many, because they only have one weapon option, which is their lance and
that's true, yeah,
and things. So actually, you can get a lot more granular than this by a good margin. The thing that's particularly cool about this is that Grail Guardian, the unit champion, who I think is kind of a new guy. I can't remember what the champion was before. He's kind of acting like a hero, the ability to bring a knightly virtue, and magic totals up to 50 points, or and also in the unit to have a magic standard worth up to 100 points. That's kind of giving them the benefit that normally you'd have to take in the old game a paladin to be able to carry that banner, or to juice up some knightly virtues and things like that. So that's kind of cool. They're making these guys much more like characters. Again, I referenced the Blood Knights earlier. Very similar in style to the way that those guys were set up for vampire counts in previous editions. You're seeing that this being a sort of a unit of heroes. However, if we could scroll up, let's have a little look at this stat line, shall we?
Yeah, please. Talk to me about it.
So we're going to look here at the old stat line. The Grail Knights, 38 points per model. So in the frame of reference, that is Warhammer Fantasy Battle. 38 points is pushing around 40. This is where you start getting to see things like monstrous cav will usually probably be somewhere, or monstrous infantry. Both those types of models, they're going to start being, I think 38 points would be on the cheap side for those guys, probably in the 50 to 60 points per model categories. We're going to start seeing them. However, there's a big difference with those guys. They got an extra wound or two. Usually they're rocking 2 to 3 wounds and a similar toughness of 4. And this is where we get into a problem that has existed for some time with elite cavalry in the game, is that they are as expensive as some other options and not nearly as survivable. In Warhammer, we always have seen, if in using my example of 40K, you've got Space Marines Forever. We're on 1 wound with a 3-up save. And Games Workshop was like, ha-ha, elite warriors of the universe. And turns out what that means is you die. You die very easily. You die quickly. You die like dogs. So my guess would be that these guys have a ton of rules. And and they can charge 1 billion inches. We can get into what they can do. But my guess would be is that unless there is, and obviously there's an entire game behind this that we don't know about. Sorry, I'm showing my background. There's an entire game behind this that we don't know about. But as it stands, this is a classic overpriced elite unit from Warhammer in the sense that it's got lots of good rules. It's cool. It's elite. It's on the cover of the army book. It dies immediately. Don't use it. Unless, of course, we see things that give them additional ward saves. Some way to juice them up to a 2-up save or a 1-up save. Because any amount of AP wounding their toughness of 4 means that their save, which is a 3, will go to either a 4 or a 5. And that's 38 points per model for each failure. So that's why I'm skeptical of Grail Knights.
We might see some recursion mechanics put in as well. Could be a thing,
Recursion mechanics? What do you mean?
So, like, Grail Knights, living saints, saints famous for fairly coming back to life.
Where they can be... Yeah, like, there's so many things that could happen to justify this 38 points per model. And maybe they worked backwards from the points cost. Maybe they're like, okay, we don't want to give heavy cavalry more wounds. How do we make them actually worth... what we're used to paying, 38 points, because they do layer on a bunch of buffs. They also added a pip of leadership, and they've added an additional toughness. When we saw the Pegasus, I believe, no, not the Pegasus, the Unicorn, we saw that the Unicorn, I believe, added a wound to the profile. Is that how it worked? I think.
Yeah.
And so I was wondering, will war horses and other mounts do similar things? Doesn't appear as such, but it does raise the question, will most mounted like cavalry models now get +1 toughness? That was kind of a traditional thing in a lot of other, like in Warhammer 40,000. If you were riding a bike, for example, you generally had +1 toughness in your unit profile. Maybe that's something they're adopting here, because these guys would have been toughness 3 in past examples. I don't know if this is just Grail Knights getting beefed up, or if that's just something more broadly where cavalry gets +1 to their toughness. Humans would normally be 3. I don't know. So that's purely speculative. But so yeah, they're a bit tougher. They're definitely better leadership. They have a butt ton of special rules built into them.
Should we talk about this?
Sure.
But the important part is, with no +1 save from being mounted, they end up on a 3-up save, like you said.
And they were already, like, so in previous games, because like elite cavalry that saw the table was, generally speaking, elite because of its armor save. So, and that was a 1-up armor save. So that means that even if you had a -1, you still had a 2-up save. Things were okay. Things like your Empire Knights, your Chaos Knights, these guys were still pretty expensive points per model basis, but they at least had really good armor saves and ways to buff that. Bretonnian Knights, as a rule, because they didn't have, I think it's because they didn't have plate armor, essentially they were starting from a higher tier anyway. They could only get to a 2-up, which means that they were getting bumped down to a 3-up if they had anything hitting them with any degree of negative to their save. So they were always in tough versus other more hardened cavalry. And it seems like that is only worse at face value. Again, there's lots of things that could be in these rules that give them more survivability, but maybe it's something you got to layer on.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. Okay, so Blessings of the Lady are the special rules. So these are universal special rules. Blessings of the Lady, Close Order, which we've seen before, Countercharge, which sounds like a USR, Finest War Horses, which sounds like a Bretonnian thing, First Charge, Bretonnian thing, Lance Formation, Bretonnian thing, Living Saints, Bretonnian thing, Swift Stride, I feel is going to be a USR, and the Grail Vow, which is interesting. I do have one criticism of this, one only. Right. I would have liked to have seen USRs, which are USRs as in across all armies, be in one section, and then rules that are specifically to Bretonnians. So if I was trying to look up some rules very quickly, I would know where to delineate between the two. It's my only criticism of that. It's in alphabetical order instead.
Yep.
But I think you could have done alphabetical order and broke it out. That's just me. Yeah. I don't know if you agree with that.
I think that would, because they are in two different places, that would have been a great thing to have a distinction of. Here's where, here are the unit special rules, here are the faction special rules, here are the universal special rules. In alphabetical order, that would line up really well. But hey, I think these guys are doing pretty good.
But when we make a wiki or whatever else we're going to make, which just have all the USRs available in a searchable function, that won't matter either. So it'll be fine. As you can see,
have some game aids.
Exactly.
Some real good game aids.
As you can see with the weapon skill 6, 5 initiative and 2 attacks, this band of brothers are a truly terrifying proposition. But their stats aren't the full story. With heavy armor shields and barded Bretonnian warhorses, they gain a save of 3+, confirming what we're talking about. While the lancers give them +2 strength on the turn they charged, and armor bane 1. So here you can see,
find out what armor bane is, which is great.
Yeah, you can see what a lance does. Strength +2. So whatever their base strength is of the model, and you add 2 to it. AP of 2 on that weapon, and it's got armor bane of 1. Models whose troop type is cavalry or monster only, lance can only be used during a turn in which the wielder is charged. In subsequent turns, if the wielder did not charge, the model must use its hand weapon instead, which is fine, and then there'll be a profile for that. And you've got armor bane. If a model with this special rule rolls a natural 6 when making a to wound roll, the armor piercing characteristics of its weapon is improved by the amount shown in the brackets, or become armor piercing 3. It's pretty effective.
Yeah, I mean I think I really like armor bane type things because basically, you're getting it's a form of critical hit, right? So if you get a crit, your AP goes up a little bit. I just like to point out that in a Bretonnian on Bretonnian matchup, assuming that the peasant archers have longbows, which I think we do know that they do, they have armor bane 1. So that means that let's take our 32 Bretonnian archers that you get in a box. What a whale of a deal! GW with 32 archers in 1 regiment box. Amazing. But let's say they all fire at our friends, the Grail Knights. And let's say they're hitting half of the time. That's 16 hits. You're getting what? At least 3 hits? Sorry, you're getting 2 hits at -1 AP. So that's 1 dead Grail Knight. And then you're probably killing another Grail Knight with the other wounds that you have as well. So that's just with a bunch of cheap ass archers. That's what I'm saying about how unsurvivable these guys are.
Yeah.
And armor bane, though, in general, as a rule, people sort of like, but now we're going to have to do the bookkeeping of knowing what wounds are what. This is a common mechanic. At least it used to be. Maybe not as much now, but I remember shuriken catapults used to work this way. On a 6, they had -4 AP instead of whatever they normally would have. And it's fun. I like it. It just means that you just separate a little dice pool for the ones that have better AP and you save them on the different number. It's easy enough.
I think a good criticism of this, just to be healthy, is that, as Pershel was pointing out in the chat, it'd be nice to have users, USRs, Universal Special Rules, with the same name, do something remotely similar across systems, like Heresy, Legion Imperialis in the Old World, all have different armor bane rules. And I do agree, structure... Oh no! I think that's legitimately very fair. Especially if
we're halfway into the article where they're getting internally calibrated across like one game, and now we're already wishing that they were across all games.
What I think is a fair point, though, is if they have armor baiting, just call it armor danger.
JYT is just like, oh man, they're gonna love these USRs. I put them all in the same place. Oh, they want me to do it for all the games.
Oh my God, this is huge. This is huge. I don't know if anyone has noticed, but this is a fanboy moment I've just heard.
Go ahead.
Val, when using his English accent, didn't use his disrespectful English accent. He's created a new, respectful, thanks for writing the old world back into the game, JTY, John Taylor York, our creator of the old world. Shout out to him. We're all fans. He has a respect. I did not know that you had a nice English accent.
It was more of like a Bob Cratchit. Christmas Carol, I guess.
But the one you use for me is legitimately disrespectful, like intentionally so. Yeah. That's a huge moment. You're a fan.
Maybe if JYT,
Jonathan Taylor York, JTY.
If you wrote an entire edition to yourself, then yeah, maybe you'll get a respectful one too. But anyway, I think we've Armorbane X, it works for me. This might also be one stolen from WAP, I think, which is great. I also wonder how much of this entire thing is just because Matthias Eliasson wrote an entire edition himself over a period of years, and this writer at Games Workshop was like, well, I mean, if that guy could do it, why can't I do it? And then he just wrote the whole edition himself. It was like, guys, did you know we could just do that? Like one person could actually just type all this stuff up if they had enough time.
And if I can just project manage this too. I could just talk to like playtesters and just ask them questions. They can tell me stuff and I can just listen. I don't even need to do it myself.
I don't even have to play it.
Yeah, I can listen.
Just have other people do that for me.
Yeah. Okay. This is a universal special rule, just one of about 75 in the game. It seems like a lot at first glance, but this new system simply collates a lot of special rules that once lived in several places, things like psychology, unit clearance, and monster rules. Close order is a good example. In the past, you just had to know that units that weren't skirmishers or fast cavalry operated in ranks and files. What we now know is a close order. Now every unit that has all its formations listed as USR, calling this out and clarifying. Likewise, stomp attacks were once listed under the monsters rules, but now it's a USR. It's possible to be more deliberate with which monsters have the rule and which don't. And it's also easy to remember you've got a stomp in the first place. And then there is maybe art. I'm going to shout out this art right now. The art. This might be art that has inspired tens of thousands of people to play this game.
Yeah, for sure.
I gotta say this for shorties.
Can we just go back? Can we back up quickly to just to their blurb about USRs just there?
Yeah.
Where they're talking about like stomps and stuff. I think what this actually leads to is ironically that because not all monsters have stomp now you're gonna have a billion bespoke monsters. So again, it's one of those things like careful what you wish for. I see why they would want to like remove things. Like they're trying to separate rules from other rules so that way there's more flexibility within making them. Like, for example, taking AP and separating it from strength. You have each characteristic independent, which means you can tune the rules a little bit better. You want to take certain special rules out of the definition of, say, monster, so that way things that not all monsters probably have the ability to stomp things, or should, and so you want to separate them. But now you have less situations where you can just look at something and be like, okay, that guy's got stomp attacks, blah, 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 because he is a monster. So again, it's a 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. There are benefits to doing it this way, but there are downsides, which is now we're going to have very bespoke, sometimes they have it, sometimes they don't rules, and that can be a little frustrating. So just sort of the grass, it's got its pros and cons doing it this way.
I think that's really fair. I think that you should play armies longer. Like, I'm not a Stillmania guy, but jumping between a billion different armies is just never going to let you settle and units as well. Is never going to let you settle into like learning those rules well, especially if you play casually. Like I understand, like you've played one game 3 months ago, you play in the next game, you don't want to play with the same army. You've been excited about a whole new thing. But it's a lot to learn. Warhammer is hard. I think that's the thing.
Hard.
It's hard. I think there's something like Warhammer is hard. It should just be a T-shirt. That's a T-shirt because it is.
Warhammer's not for everyone. It is hard.
Yeah, it's hard. I gotta shout out a thought that I saw online. Or shout out Eater of Brushes, who makes he's just a Twitter dude I know. He's a good guy. Posted a tweet out yesterday, which did really well and resonate with people. So it's definitely not my idea. I want to shout it out. But he said when we see the boxes for these minis, I would quite like to see the box art as the front of the box, with the and not see the minis. I'd like to see the box art on the front. I think it's more evocative, and I also don't want to see ground arts on the front of a box.
They'll have a better chance of selling them. I wonder how many boxes we actually see. Period. I think we're going to see a lot of the stuff will be online only, web card only. Come in that Citadel white box. I think probably. So like the newer stuff though will probably have pretty box design. I'd agree that I would prefer to see the artwork. Also would be hilarious because it would collapse the new in box collectible box market, because that's why the ones that are worth, or at least people pay the most for, are the ones with the box art, not the minis on them. Yeah.
I'd like to see the art. I think the art would be great, and I think it's probably too late now, obviously, for that decision. But that, just looking at that, just scrolling to that part of the article, and that being the front of a box, I'm likely to look at that box more than those minis.
It's gorgeous. I would just love it. I don't know what the main difference is in their artwork and between then and now. Like for example, the art on the cover of the leaked Bretonnian novel, which maybe we'll talk about later, is not nearly as beautiful and evocative as say that is. And no disrespect to the artist that pushed it out. I suspect that the brief was much more narrow, and the time to work on it was probably shorter, and wasn't as worth going. Like this is a beautiful painting, whereas maybe now there's a lot more stuff that's sort of tossed off on an iPad. And just to sort of have.
Oh no, that's absolutely no. That's the in-house artists are they all have their own. I know for a fact that Tony encourages his artists to work in the style and way that works best for them to create. So they all have, and they're all hired for that. They're all given different projects. Also, they're quite nice. They're like a collaborative group of artists. So if they're stuck on a project, they can start talking to one of the other artists as well. I think the art you see coming out like Black Book stuff, for like Horus Heresy, like when you saw that stuff, that was all those artists working together in cohesion. I think that stuff is excellent. I think it holds up to that Bretonnian stuff. You just haven't seen it. And obviously, like Blood Bowl art is a very different, intentionally different aesthetic,
and maybe SDS will bring the heat with their artists, for sure. And I think that so much of again that evocative quality of fantasy, I think, is rooted in the art. Every time one of these things drop, they show a piece like that, where it's just these iconic illustrations that people clearly have had ingrained in their minds. And there is something I've seen people sort of mumble about how the art isn't as good as it used to be, and I think it's kind of hard not to argue that maybe there is there was more freedom to go further and to spend and invest more time on an individual piece in the old days than there is today, and I don't know why that would be. And I hope that SDS allows their illustrators to really marinate in the setting and provide us with some new imagination exploding pieces that we can just stare at and dreamily think about stuff while looking at.
My example would be currently Necromunda, where obviously that's been revisited from where it was, and Necromunda is just in a stunning place. The art coming out of Necromunda is constant. That's also, it's not just rarely, it's constant and it's excellent. And it's very evocative. So I think it's very, very good. in my personal opinion. Okay, so then we've got some other stuff. Beyond USRs, there are also rules that only govern units from a single army, which are collected in the relevant army list, and even a couple of rules that are unique to a particular unit. These are listed on individual profiles. With that in mind, let's find out what exactly our Grey Knights are capable of. We've got special rules for the lady. I mean, it's fucking misogynistic. Not square-bast.
Well, they're praying to the lady, the wood elf in the forest.
It's a joke. Yeah. The Blessings of the Lady is an army-wide rule for the Kingdom of Bretonnia. Instead of rolling to see who goes first, the Bretonian army may instead kneel to pray for the protection of the Lady of the Lake. This grants a 6+ ward save, invulnerable save, against any wounds suffered, or 5+ against wounds of strength 5 or higher. Of course, this blessing can be lost by besmirching one's own honor, either when a unit flees or character declines a challenge.
I'm just going to call this a trap immediately because it's a wood elf trying to get the Bretonian to give up going potential to go first and charge them so that they can be shot to death with arrows instead. Because that 6+ ward save ain't gonna cut it. Ain't gonna cut it, sugar. When the wood elves of Avalorn are just peppering you.
It doesn't work on 38-point models, but it works on a bunch of peasants. Like it's an economies of scale thing, depending on where you're at.
Truly.
Yeah, which is obviously bad for the elite unit. Yeah, you're right. So maybe this isn't as good as we would like it to be, but maybe it is good. Who knows? Again,
situational.
Stunning art. Stunning art. Close order we have covered already. Countercharge is effective against monsters, cavalry, and chariots. If our Grey Knights are charged by units such as these...
If I could interject really quickly before countercharge. They say close order we've covered already. I don't think they have. And again, this is the reason why I think this is kind of annoying. Because there's open order, closed order, and skirmish. So there must be more of a distinction between open order and closed order. So no, I do not think that they have covered it already. Yes, closed order, it means that you're in ranks and files. But in things like Warhammer Ancient Battles, when we did the deep dive on that a few episodes back, we discovered that open and closed order look exactly the same. So on the tabletop, they would seem to be the same. They're both just in ranks and files. However, an open order formation would give you benefits to movement versus a closed order formation that might give you benefits to combat resolution. So there's probably, I would think, more rules than just this. Sorry.
It's okay. I think that's a good point to bring up. It's effective against monster, cavalry, and chariots. If our Grey Knights are charged by such units, so monsters, cavalry, and chariots, such as these from a longer distance and their attacker's movement characteristic, they can spur their horses D3 plus 1 inches in response. Both parties count as charging, and an initiative then comes into play. This is huge.
Yeah, so this is the explanation how countercharge works. This is how it worked in Warhammer Ancient Battles, by the way, which is kind of cool. Which is basically you are riding out to meet your attacker. The biggest controversy I think from this paragraph is that both parties count as charging, and initiative then comes into play. So this is causing people to think, "Whoa, wait a minute! Does that mean that if they hadn't countercharged, that the charging unit would have automatically struck first, like has happened in previous editions?" I don't think so. I think this is just, again, someone very sleepy and tired of writing old world articles and leaving some ambiguity behind by accident.
No, we have like I think it reads well. Like as I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong. I charge, I get +1 to my initiative.
We haven't heard how much, but yes. Yeah. Okay, we'll assume some sort of benefit to initiative, yes.
Okay, perfect. So I get +1. So then initiative would come into effect because you're charging +1, my charging +1, and then it comes down to what our initiative values are. I don't think that in any way references always strike first, unless I get it, maybe it's just worded badly, I guess.
I think the context is initiative would always come into play, and once combat starts, is the way we understood it before this was written. So basically, this makes it feel like countercharge is making it initiative-based rather than the charger gets to go first. I don't think so.
Yeah, so I don't think so either.
It's just the context, but people have been reading into this in that sense because of just the context of, well, wait a minute, what if countercharge wasn't here? Would that mean that initiative doesn't come into play? Is basically the way people are reading it. I think it's much ado about nothing. Over nothing, yes. I think it's initiative order, but will be really interesting to see, how much of an initiative buff you get from charging. They did say it's going to be more if you charge in the rear or the flanks. et cetera, et cetera.
I love this,
And
by the
whether
way.
or not there's step up, is a big deal.
Yeah, I love this. I love, your cavalry unit moves over my cavalry unit, and then boom, now we're both charging. Let's get wrecked. This is good. I feel like this is
Car crash scenario.
Yeah, this is very fun. Very fun. I'm going to make the board state more dynamic than I initially thought. Like this is gonna produce a more dynamic board state, which is actually really exciting. So yeah, this is huge. Okay, I'm actually really excited by that from a mechanics level.
And it also makes like, because it's what is it? It's all cavalry, monsters, and chariots.
Yep.
Have countercharge for the most part. So that makes them really interesting screening units. Like having that chariot sort of vanguard out, or having a unit of light cavalry vanguard out to try and either draw a charge or to screen things out like Grail Knights bombing from very far away. Makes it interesting.
I agree. Finest Warriors is another Bretonnian-only rule. Such is the quality of these noble steeds, you may reroll any ones when you charge, flee, or pursue, before discarding any dice. If their first charge of the game makes contact, the target unit loses its rank bonus until the next round of combat. If their first charge, so first charge is a special rule because it's in bold, and then you got Lance formation allows Bretonnian Knights to form their signature devastating charge formation, offering them a choice between this and close order. Close order. This is really interesting. Finest, so reroll ones when you charge, flee, or pursue is going to make your charges much, much more effective. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Much more effective. I think,
and that's not all.
Go on. Oh,
well, no. There's even more. Like the
we'll
the
keep
stacking
going.
rules. Yeah, the stacking rules on charging for Grail Knights is a lot of fun. There's lots of stuff.
Living Saints is a great example of unique special rule. These Grail Knights are such mighty warriors that they can individually issue challenges to enemy characters. Goblin bosses, watch out. Swift Stride adds a further 3 inches to your maximum charge range and plus D6 inches to any given charge, flight, or pursuit. Wow, that is fast. That is bananas fast.
So this is where things to me are a little convoluted. So previously they talked about how in the movement article it was discussing how cavalry. So just for those who don't know, in the new game, in order to make a charge, it's 2d6. 2d6 dice. You pick the highest of that result. So let's say it's a 6, and then you add your movement value. So if you're a human being, your movement value is usually 4. So 2d6, pick the highest. 6 plus 4, your maximum charge range is 10 inches. This references a maximum charge range, which they haven't really defined yet, which is interesting. So there's a cap to how far you can even declare your charges, because if you have Swift Stride, now you are at least doing 2d6, picking the highest, and then adding another d6, and then there's actually even more that you can add, I'm pretty sure, coming up, re-rolling ones. So these guys are so it's going to be what? Like 4. Let's say 4 plus 8 is 12 is like sort of their base. Plus d6, we're at 15 inches, and I think there's a way to juice it even more on top of that. So like these guys are going far on average compared to other units.
These are going very far, like very far. But Swift Stride is a common cavalry rule. We're going to see, I think, because that's obviously not going to be just Bretonnian.
It's definitely universal. But again, like, does all cavalry now have Swift Stride? Or because it's not a cavalry. I don't think it's not trapped by cavalry. So I don't think all cavalry default has Swift Stride. They have to have written it into the rule. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
There could be situations where they don't get Swift Stride because of reasons.
Agreed. Thanks to Epgelion in the chat for subscribing for the first time, which is rad. I like the you can individually do challenges as well. That's pretty fun. That's nice. That's really fun. And then the Grail Vow provides further benefits. They are unaffected by fear and terror, and they fight with magical attacks. And the first time they fail a break test, they may automatically fall back in good order, which is huge, which is absolutely huge. That does produce like a very effective, force that isn't going to ever be run down. They will be there till the end. That's very good.
Although if they are failing a break test, something's probably gone wrong.
Yeah.
But yes, good that they can't just be completely crushed by accident. If you have tripped over the invisible turtle and flubbed your glorious charge, it's nice to know that they won't just immediately get run down if you had a bad roll of dice, you know?
Yeah, I think that's excellent in my opinion. And then on top of that, you can load up on even more abilities and magic items and the knightly virtue for the Grail Guardian, who leads them, or a magic banner granting him the virtue of the impetuous knight to extend your charge range, which is you don't need, but that's insane. At the risk of impetuously charging towards the foe, the dragon slaying sword to make him a monster slayer, or the blazing banner to add flame attacks. I need to plant a flag in the ground right now, and I need to say something.
Go ahead.
I'm fucking stunned, right? Let me explain why. Dr. White subscribing for the first time is the reason, but it's also because I'm so excited to have magic items and magic things back. I can't tell you how much I have argued for this in Age of Sigmar for years and years and years. By assigning them points, you get to add a balance to them, but it also means you can be ludicrous. Because everything isn't costed the same, which is 0, you can have stuff that's too good or not very good. And even if something that's 5 points, the little fantasy kid inside of me is so excited. Like the sword of dragon slaying can be 5 fucking points. I do not care. Yeah, and it's +1 attack against monsters. And I'm like, that's all I need. Like that. That's all I like. I want to.
A little bit of something.
Yeah, I'm gonna paint that a little color. I'm gonna do a little thing. If you don't know, again, if you're playing 40k Age of Sigmar right now, normally you get some sort of free magical item or something, or I don't know. But this, to me, was one of the key selling points for fantasy. Upgrading little characters, upgrading wizards, upgrading your whole army for little universal things is fucking cool.
That last 100 points is just so much fun and also maddening to round out. So like right now, like list building, without a doubt, list building in 40k and AOS, real easy. It's pretty straightforward stuff. But I, again, as someone who hasn't been lost in either of those systems, like you can tell me, I'm sure people still have the joy of agonizing over, the choices that they put into their AOS list. I'm not saying that doesn't exist, because that is clearly exists. But anytime you're building a list, you're going to just spend a lot of time going back and forth on what you're going to put into it. Just the level of granularity that a fantasy list has is comical by comparison. And you can do you can add so much little pieces of tech. And as the meta evolves, we're going to see lots of interesting counterplay based on how you equip units, how the tools that you give your army, what things are being, added to lists to make sure that, you can take on all comers. And that's the fun part of tailoring with this level of detail.
And again, I'd like to be clear that from a mechanics perspective, it's really, really fun and enjoyable. But it ties into one of the key things I love about Warhammer, which is ultimately these aren't just numbers. Yes, there's story. They're Grail Knights. There's a whole backstory. Yeah. The lore inherent in what these things are makes this much better. It's why League of Legends has hired all of the Black Library authors effectively over the years, and they made that absolutely incredible. If you haven't watched it yet, the Netflix show they did was stunning. Yeah, so good. Because once you start to build story into these things, they become even better. And paying for magical items, I think, really, really makes this better. I'd like to be clear. So, yeah. Then you got the virtue of the impetuous knight, which is one of the virtues. A model of this virtue, the impetuous knight rule, in addition to this model and its unit, increases its maximum possible charge by 3 inches. Finally, when this model and its unit makes a charge roll, you apply a +D3 modifier to the result, which is pretty fun. Love that.
So my guess here is that your maximum charge range would be your movement value +6. So the maximum charge range of a guy on a horse before any rules would probably be would be the movement of the horse, which is 8, +6, which is the maximum value you can get when you roll 2d6, pick the highest, right? Yeah. That'd be maximum charge range before Swift Stride is 14 inches. I believe I've done the math correctly there. Mm-hmm. Swift Stride then adds another 3 inches to that, which means your maximum charge range is 17 inches. And then this adds another 3 to that, giving you a maximum charge range of 20 inches. So a real long bomb charge opportunity with these guys.
That's nuts. That's so far. That's so dumb.
And then another D3. So basically they're rolling 2d6, pick the highest, and then plus
rerolling ones.
D6. Rerolling ones, plus D6 plus D3. I'm not sure if you can reroll ones on those.
But you definitely can reroll ones on the 3d6 you initially roll.
Well, yeah, 2d6 make the highest, yes.
Oh,
so that's
yeah.
fun.
That's fast.
That's fun.
And then you got the Dragon Slaying Sword. It doesn't say how many points it is. No, RIP. It's strength combat user, but it's got magical attacks. It's got the Monster Slayer rule. So I feel like it's not going to...
Slayer.
Yeah, so it's not going to cost a lot of points, but it's like give me like 10 different swords, lances, and axes. Like, make a bunch. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's so rad.
Yeah.
And then Magic Standard, the Blazing Banner. Again, you could just paint a flamey banner. It's so rad. A unit carrying the Blazing Banner gains the Flaming Attack special rule. And for hobbyists should be like screaming about this, and it's kind of upsetting. I haven't seen this a lot online. People should be screen capping this, and they should be like, I'm going to have a BSB in a unit, or the unit, a Grail Knight guy with a Blazing Banner, and they're going to paint him up. He's going to be all fiery and shit, and then there'll be another one who's got a Banner of Life or whatever, and I paint that all up green and shit. Like, you should be screaming about these options, not just like, yeah, whatever. It's exciting, I think.
Yeah. Well, I think it's so funny. Like, I guess just like the existing fantasy community just takes all this as for granted, right? Like, these are all things that I have become very used to getting to play with as I, spent the last 2 years enjoying myself in Warhammer in Fantasy 8th Edition. And I kind of even forget like how simplified a lot of these style of things got in the last few editions of 40K that I played. Where, yeah, you got to have some artifacts and things, but, you got one or two per army, not, an entire, like, kitted out super soldier of stuff, which is what you used to be able to do. So, yeah, I think taking it for granted, thank you for pointing out the bounty of fun rules and interactions and things that we get to do that both, like, drive that sort of that Ludo narrative, as well as, I think, sort of the metagame as well.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very good. Universal special rules provide variety of character. Blah, 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 blah. Elite units of Grail Knights generally have the most USRs, but even the lowlier likes to Praetorian Squires have a few tricks up the sleeve with move through cover, open order, peasantry, skirmishers, and vanguard. To find out what these do, you have to complete your questing vow, buying all the Warhammer the Old World rulebook. Such a. At the end, it's like, to complete this, you'll have to give us money. Is great. Yeah, it feels like pastors doing like what is it?
Putting the
tithing.
out?
Yeah, they're like tithing. Like, in order to get to heaven, give us money. Okay, so what are your feelings based on what we've seen so far? I know you said you've got a lot of questions and you're upset about that still.
I'm not upset. I'm not upset. I'm just, we've teased this out. Like, we got the original tease of teases, which was back in the spring. They told us about sort of the guiding principles of the game, and then they threw out a couple very broadly described rules mechanics, and then there was nothing. Then we were just sitting around wondering what was actually going to happen with the game. I guess we're 7 weeks ago now, something like that. They started coming out with these articles. The almanacs, and quite frankly, they've been literal revelations. They've been really fun. Like, our entire original run of this show has been just dissecting these things and getting into them. But we've got enough of a picture that, we have a collage even of rules. And there are some big open questions, which I, for one, would love to know how they're answered. So that way we get sort of a general idea on the type of game we're going to be playing. And actually, if I might segue us into a question proposed on Warhammer the Old World.
I'd love that. But can I just get a thought I just had exploded out my brain?
Yeah, 100%.
An upgrade pack. So Bretonia, as an example, So if there's a budding STL designer out there, and I can also speak to Tom, imagine you had an upgrade pack you could buy where it was all of the magic items that you could purchase, as an upgrade pack, like a 3D. Do you know what I mean? Like,
actually just model all of them?
Just model all of them.
So this was a thing that 8th edition did compared to the previous ones, which was in 8th edition they moved Lores of Magic, so 8 Lores of Magic into the core rulebook, and they also moved all like a very beefy set of universal magic weapons, banners, equipment, arcane items, all that stuff went into the rulebook instead of in all of the army books. So that meant that everyone had this really robust common pool of items to pull from, which sort of was a little bit better because most, for example, armies would have access to a specific magical sword that had like +1 strength, but not all of them for whatever reason. So it basically just sort of made it a little bit easier for all of the armies to have, access to similar buffs. I think that's the way they're going in this one as well. I think you'll see sort of a central pool of magic items, and then each army book or army list is going to have additional ones to pull on, like unique ones to go from there. So your idea of like having cool upgrade kits, I think in general, I will say is a fantastic idea. I would love to see people out there coming up with just the arms for Tomb King skeletons. I would love to see for the Empire militia kit, people for the rear ranks that could have their pole arm, add arm, like I can't remember what this is called, but basically holding them upright, because right now everyone is holding them straight out. It's awful.
Sucks. Yeah.
Like there's all kinds of opportunities, because if we're married to these kits aren't far from being they're not like awful. They're just like, there's certain elements to them that could be easily improved with just a couple, pieces.
Yeah, I mean, but even if you use already a 3D, like, a design from a 3D sculptor, they still don't have all of these things because they weren't designed with these things in mind, right? We definitely could speak to Tom. And also what I like is the universal magic items. If Flaming Banner is a universal magic, like having one for Bretonnia is going to look very different to one for Orcs. So it's very possible to make an upgrade kit for Bretonnian army only, and then just kind of mix it up. That would be so good. That's going to be so fun. That's a fun idea, right?
I think it's a fun idea.
Yeah, fun idea. Okay, sorry. You then wanted to bring up the thing. Please go.
Yeah, so we had a question. Totally don't ask us questions in our Discord. Actually, I think in the Discord, we're going to just create a Patreon's question channel, along with all the Renegade factions, which we'll get to, I swear to God.
Renegade factions.
We'll add, with the Renegade factions, the non-core factions. We need to add sub-channels for those, or whatever they're called. Places for people to talk about Chaos Dwarves and Lizardmen and stuff.
In the Discord.
In the Discord. It's already in the tasks.
I'll do it today.
Cool. Anyway, but this one came from Warhammer the Old World on Facebook, where we absolutely do not post links to this show. What are the people's thoughts on no maximum unit size? And this is from Ben Alexander Edwards, by the way. I've loved absolutely everything I've seen so far, but that one thing makes me nervous. Games are more interesting when there's a broad variety of sensibly sized units rather than a smaller number of homogeneous mega blocks. Val Heffelfinger, that's me. Any chance you'll be able to talk to that point through in your subsequent wonderfully entertaining and informative episode of Square Base Podcast? Well, I certainly can, Ben.
We got asked questions online. Oh.
And they tag the Facebook page.
Truly the voice of the people.
Truly. So I think this is actually one of the big outstanding questions for the game and how it works. So I think we've seen a lot of rules that harken back to some of the glory years of like the 6th and 7th. Again, I'm no expert on them, but I do know my 8th edition pretty well. I feel like I understand how it interacts and works and all that kind of stuff. And one big hallmark of 8th edition fantasy battles was these very large units of infantry, from the very memey 100+ sized units of goblins or Skaven slaves, to just very beefy units of things like halberdiers, or of around 40 models, or Chaos Warriors would often be bricked up into big wide formations. I've covered in previous editions of the episodes of the show that I think that was largely driven by one, a 25% requirement that all of you, like 25% of your points, had to come from core, which means you had to bring a fair amount of infantry. That's 500 points in a 2,000-point game, would have to come from the cheapest units that you had available to you in your core general infantry. The second one was there were some rules that also drove people to double down on the fact, so that you have to bring this infantry. Well, there's also some upsides. One was this thing called steadfast, which meant if you had more ranks than your opponent and you lost combat, you tested on unmodified leadership. So if you were leadership 10 and you got beat up real bad in combat res, and you should have been rolling snake eyes, if you still had more ranks than your opponent, you were steadfast, which means you were still rolling on your leadership 10, which made it very hard for things like elite cavalry to charge into a big brick of infantry and break them on the charge, meaning that they either got stuck into these big, long grind fests or they bounced. Essentially, they would, maybe win the first round of combat, subsequent rounds, not do so hot, and then get broken themselves. That is kind of the story of Bretonnians in 8th edition. Cavalry just didn't have the damage output to be able to break these large units. And then outside of that, you had what was called horde formation, which means if you were 10 wide, you got to fight in not just +2 ranks, because everyone could fight in 2 ranks in 8th, you could fight in 3 ranks. So if you had, for example, I love running my unit of halberdiers in 10 wide, that's 30 attacks from those first 3 ranks. So you have a unit that might be impossible, very hard to break, and has a very high damage output, and that's all driven by the fact that there's a lot of models in the unit. So why does this matter? We're talking about 8th edition, right? Right, Rob? Why am I talking about all of this?
Please.
The reason why I'm talking about all this is that I think right now things are shaping up to have all the exact same problems as, well, if you want to call them that, problems, that were encouraging big old units of infantry in 8th edition. I'm seeing them once again in this edition. The first one being that essentially, instead of just units that outnumber you having steadfast, everything kind of has steadfast now. As we know from the psychology and the close combat articles, if you fail the modified leadership check, but pass your unmodified leadership check when you lose in combat, you no longer break and flee, because you used to always test on your modified leadership, and if you failed that, you would break and flee, and you could be chased down. Now there's this thing, fall back in good order. So if you pass your leadership check on the unmodified one, so let's say you're leadership 10 and you pass it, you now don't immediately die if you get caught. You just start up in another round of combat, maybe at a slight disadvantage, a little bit further away in a different place, and you're getting charged again, all that kind of stuff. But nonetheless, you're not just wiped out, which is one of the only ways you could remove big blocks of units, is to break them and chase them down. Now it's particularly difficult. You have to fail both your modified and unmodified leadership check to do that.
So you think this is going to see an increase in big blocks?
I think that means that big blocks are very survivable. As long as you can absorb casualties, aka have a lot of wounds, you're probably not getting broken. And we still don't know, how other buffs to leadership can appear, whether that's the general's leadership or
debuffs,
re-rolling stuff, or debuffs. But still, at face value, if I'm a dwarf, I'm base leadership 9 probably. I don't give I don't care. I don't care if you charge into me with your Grail Knights and you kill 9 of my buddies. Doesn't matter to me. I'm gonna be okay. There's that. And then there's the wide frontage. Mm-hmm. I'm just gonna finish this. Wide frontage. Yes, the minimum size unit is 25 millimeters instead of 20. But we've seen that people who aren't in base-to-base contact in the front rank can still swing with +1 attack. That means that there is incentive to be as wide as you can be. You're not allowed to be deeper than you are wide, but you can go wide and have fewer ranks. Or, for example, you could be 10 by 10, and boom, you got your unit of 100 goblins again. And you're getting a lot more guys swinging in that front row, even if everyone's killed. So I'm seeing a lot of incentives to have those big units again, and I don't know the rest of the puzzle, the things that might mitigate those big unit sizes. I still have not seen something.
So my thoughts are that so one of the things I'm actually really excited about since I came over to Canada and played in the Squarebase GT1, Squarebase GT2 on sale, is that I'm really questioning kill points at the moment. And I know I mentioned this to you, last night in the WhatsApp for me. And again, I'd love to talk about it in the future. Pros, cons, other stuff. But ultimately, the Warhammer Fantasy Battle as a game, Warhammer Fantasy Battle as a game versus Age of Sigmar and 40k as a game is a great question. Because both of them have their merits. 40k and Age of Sigmar have their merits as a game. Necromunda has its merits as a game, But Warhammer Fantasy Battle, or the Old World, I think is the thing most on the market that's trying to be a battle simulator. It's trying kill points is my kind of like clarion call with that. They're trying to replicate, armies battling it out. And arguably, very much like Old World is, a pastiche of like medieval Europe. People get mad at me for that for some reason, but it is. It's a pastiche of like a medieval battle in many ways. You've got magic and monsters, and you've got other stuff that you've thrown in there as well, of course. But so big blocks, or I know there's big blocks and there's not big blocks, but you would be. I think you would dislike a game that was more focused around, blocks of 5 cavalry. You'd be like, well,
right. MSU.
No, you'd be like, okay, that kind of works. And I'm not saying, I agree with Dave in the chat. It's kind of historicals for people in denial, or maybe it's just better historicals, because historicals probably it's better historicals.
I think it's a game. It's a game that incorporates armies that look like ancient armies all the way up to you don't really have like pure musket like Napoleonic style armies in fantasy, but just before that, pike and shot type things where you have cavalry with some shooting and all that kind of stuff. Like that is definitely how it's sort of designed and pulled out. I think it's a good thing to have some degree of large amounts of infantry. But I think the thing is that there were lots of things that pushed units to that extreme size in 8th edition. I'm not seeing the stuff that mitigates them in Old World. And on top of that, there's a very big fish. Rob, there was an enormous fish. There's the biggest fish we've maybe ever seen in any Warhammer game. And that fish was nuke spells. Those existed in Warhammer 8th edition. And that was one big way that you mitigated against those big blocks of infantry. That was one way that everyone had a means of killing those guys and had the damage output needed to like take out 100 rats. Kill 2/3 of them in one dice roll. That was one way to do it. Those don't exist anymore. The only way I see, so we're seeing a reduction in the ability of psychology to get rid of units, because things aren't going to break and be chased down very often by the looks of it. We don't have big death spells as a means of dealing damage. So we don't have, the Dwellers Below and the Purple Suns and all that kind of stuff, which means we have just regular old damage from units as the means of dealing with
we also have movement. You also have redirecting. Which maybe because I think skirmish rules were they weren't janky, but the skirmishes weren't available across the board. So maybe we see a slightly more credence given to skirmishes. Maybe big blocks are literally just movement controlled, and it's just that's the easiest way to go through it. Yeah, you're right.
But if we're guessing that this is a game of kill points, then essentially the game is you got to kill the other guy, right?
Yeah, I agree. I just honestly believe that I don't get upset about the idea that it's a bunch of big blocks. Also, I've been playing a lot of Star Wars Shatterpoint recently, as you know.
Yeah.
And one of the things that happens in that game is that almost no models are removed in the game as you go through the game. And it's kind of odd. You definitely, you can do this thing where you can flip them to a wounded status and they don't count for holding objectives, and then they flip back. But the kind of bit that's exciting about it is that you can't really get one turn. There's no real massive, when someone comes over and wounds a couple of your clones, you're like, oh God. But you don't go that same feeling when turn 1, you take your big model off the board. It's just not the same feeling, and then not having that same feeling, happen. If Warhammer Fantasy Battle ends up with a bunch of static blocks, and they don't really end up killing, I don't know. Maybe that would feel like busy work. It's a great question, right? What are the feelings it's going to produce? I'm not really sure yet.
I'm not convinced. I'm basically where I'm at is I can see a game state that if I can see the game state, if my brain. Because I'm not clairvoyant, okay? I'm only going on what I've seen before. Clearly, people have been playtesting and working on this game. They've seen what's come before. Clearly, they've picked a lot of really great mechanics. They've cherry-picked a lot of them and removed a lot of them. So I'm confident that these are things that are mitigated somehow. The problem is we haven't seen that, and that's why I think I'm starting to grow a little frustrated by these dribbles of rules, because I would really love to see what is this game kind of going to look like? Is it going to be big blocks, or is it even going to be the better of that, which is some armies are big blocks of beefy infantry, booyah, And then, but also viably, there are these units of elite heavy cavalry that do have ways of dealing with big blocks of infantry, that do have ways to break and chase down and deal a lot of damage, just from running things down. Maybe there are things like that we just haven't seen yet. And I find that exciting. I just am impatient and a millennial, and I want it now. I also, just to round this off, if I might start segueing towards the exits, because we have the Square-based GT coming up in March, perhaps one of the first GTs on the planet. I think it also provides for Old World. I think it also gives us the opportunity to start developing what our tournament pack looks like as soon as we do have details on this. Because I'm very much a proponent of, look, if the game incentivizes you to have big blocks of infantry, there's no reason why we can't have rules about unit fillers and encourage people to have creative, awesome unit fillers in their units. There's no reason why we couldn't make that a thing. That immediately removes probably the only real issue there is with big units of infantry, is that it's just a pain in the butt to put them together. And also everything to do with base sizes, how we're going to deal with, what we expect people to do to show, that people are using the right frontages and footprint. I think, Rob, you already had a really great way to solve it. Just make sure your tray is the right frontage, and everything else kind of can flow from there. We can be entirely base agnostic in our pack if we wish. Models in general, like how do we rule? I have a bunch of stone trolls that are on 50 millimeter bases. I think there's going to be a lot of AOS models that will make for very excellent proxies in this game that will be ostracized from the game because they don't fit on even the updated ones. For example, stone trolls look like they're on 40s. New good looking stone trolls don't really fit on those. So do we have our own bespoke set of allowable models based on what they are? All these types of questions, I think, will be a lot of fun to sort of answer and interact with the community and develop, a really cool tournament packet, assuming all of these answers aren't provided for us.
Yeah, and when we are eventually able to work through that and open that up, we'll put that online so people can just download it and use it themselves. Because a lot of that, I've done that busy work for Age of Sigmar. I made terrain maps for Age of Sigmar, and now they just get used the world over. And it's just because someone takes 2 days out to do a job, and everyone else is like, "Thanks, boss." Other than us all doing it, it's not about making decisions for everyone. It's about giving guidance and working through problems, which most people normally come to the same conclusions. But you don't have to come to the same conclusions.
And there's also the strength in numbers, because gamers are quite cranky about making modifications, and a lot of people will be like, "Well, you got to play it out the way." Anyway, doesn't matter. But this is why I love and I love to plug. In fact, I've almost got through the whole show without plugging them. But the Triple Crown Wargaming guys, they created a pack that I then took and modified to my own devices. It was ready to go, made 8th edition very pleasurable to play, and that was because they had already done that work. I didn't take what they said as gospel. I made changes so that it was my particular brand of stew, but without their work, it would have been much harder to run such a great event a couple weeks back. I think the same thing will go for us. When we create our own pack for our tournaments, we just put them out there. If people want to use them, fantastic. If it becomes a format, cool. If it doesn't, and it's just what we use at our events, then that's cool too.
Okay, yeah, I agree. And I think it's super important to do so, which is really fun. I'm going to start poking some people about an army builder. I think that's something I want, very soon.
It's a big deal.
Yeah,
well, army building is the next week. Next week is how to construct an army. So.
Oh, okay.
So that's what we'll be talking about next week.
Oh, okay, amazing. All right, shout out to our Triple Crown guys as well, who sold out their first event for the Old World. Only took a few hours. So amazing.
I think a few minutes, to be quite honest.
Amazing. When's theirs? When is theirs going to be? Is it
somewhere in the summer? No, May. It'll be May. Yeah.
Okay. So not long after ours. Okay, that's exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, nice. We should try and throw them some tickets or something. That would be fun. Try and get them over.
Heck yeah.
Okay, right. So if you have enjoyed the show, then I want to thank you for listening to the end of the show. It's awesome of you to do that. And also for any comments you leave, liking, subscribing, watching the show, whether you've done it on Twitch or watch it on YouTube or listen to it as a podcast. It's deeply grateful for your support and really starting to understand that having real viewers is an incredible thing that I hadn't really taken into account before. So real people doing
You've
real
got
things.
real viewers.
Yeah, I know. Just it's mind-blowing, right? So it's pretty awesome.
It is mind-boggling.
Yeah. So thank you to everyone for supporting me and Val on the Square Base project, which is great.
Yes.
Mr. Val Hilfinger, do you want to got any shout-outs for today?
Shout out to the commenters out there for keeping me on my toes. Shout out to this game that I'm really excited to play as soon as humanly possible. And shout out to anybody who might be disgruntled and wants to slide in my DMs. Just saying.
Yeah, get in there. Get in there. Oh. Thank you for being Square Base. And don't forget, from the four corners of the world to the Square Base. Thanks very much.